Cars flew off the sales lot last month. November car sales came in at the best in 14 years, thanks in part to Black Friday sales. Fiat Chrysler posted the strongest growth among the major car makers with a 3% increase. Volkswagen, by the way, down 25%. Ouch. Cars may be moving off the lots, but as we mentioned earlier, the nation's manufacturing sector is stalling. To discuss this and some of the other global economic news is Robert Brusca. He is chief economist with FAO Economics. Bob, welcome back to our Xchange. As always, we'll get to the ISM number in a moment. Just first, your initial thoughts about the car sales, which came in not great, but better than what we had hoped for.
Well, okay, there's a problem here. The car sales are good. Okay, the unit sales are strong. They've gotten up to 18 million units. They've been hovering in that area for a while, but they've rarely been able to stay at that level. So while automakers are happy and they're making lots of money, and the unions have gotten some better deals because of this, growth is about increases. And so if we don't grow from this level, that's going to be a problem. We're at such an elevated level. I think it's going to be very hard for car sales to contribute to growth.
So the year-over-year comps are going to kind of be difficult to match. And the growth, I mean, we have 3% from Chrysler. We have a point from Ford, 1.5% from GM. They're going in the right direction, but they're not totally robust.
Right, and of course, then you've got the foreign makers that have a variety of issues,
Well, Volkswagen down 25%, but
yes,
that's because Volkswagen is stuck in a terrible scandal right now, probably.
A terrible scandal, yeah.
Of course, manufacturing fits into this. The ISM number, some analysts have called this a disaster ISM number. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's not a good number. And in fact, in the past, when we've seen numbers this low, they have really frequently turned into be precursors for recession. So it's a very weak number. Below 50, it says that manufacturing is contracting, and that's not a good thing.
And why would manufacturing be contracting right now?
Well, manufacturing is contracting because the auto sector is about the only really strong sector of the economy. The dollar is very strong, and so U.S. manufacturers are having a very hard time. They can't sell abroad. Export orders and export sales are weak. And then domestically, the consumer has been very careful spending money on everything but the autos. The auto sales have been strong, and everything else has been fairly weak.
But we have strength in the aviation sector, right? Boeing is selling a bunch of airplanes as well.
Well, yeah, that's a very special sort of a sector, and besides, that's not a consumer sector, that's an investment sector.
Okay, so let's talk about now, the Fed looks at the ISM number, and we kept hearing economists say the Fed's going to raise interest rates, even if they don't raise interest rates by all that much. Now they get this number. Does this give them any sort of pause?
Well, they've told us they're data dependent, and so now we're going to find
out
if they're men and women of their word.
Well, all right, so there's been a lot of people who've said that Janet Yellen and this group have a credibility problem. So
they have a real credibility problem.
But now they've been talking about how it's the right environment to raise interest rates. Yet if they don't raise interest rates, their credibility is going to be shot, even if they're data-driven, on a few data points now that have been rather disappointing.
Well, that's the problem. A lot of Fed people have said that they think the Fed will be raising interest rates this year. At that last meeting, they even focused on the December meeting to make us really look at it even closer. But they've also said they're data-dependent. And the economic reports over the last 2 months have been on the weak side.
Does this give support to the economists who have said that this is a phony recovery to begin with, that it's an asset bubble, and now we're starting to see the chickens come home to roost? Basically, we're getting the soft data, economic data, and now the Fed is in a box.
Well, it's hard to debunk that argument. I think that there are a lot of things about this recovery that have been missing. And of course, the unemployment rate is low because the participation rate is so low. People have dropped out of the workforce. Every month, I make this calculation of what the unemployment rate would be if the participation rate hadn't changed at the beginning from the beginning of the recession. And the answer to that is 10%, not 5%.
It would be twice as high right now if the participation rate was the same. The Fed knows that, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there's an argument. I don't think that I'm not arguing that the real unemployment rate is 10%. But what I want to focus on is how much the participation rate is responsible for what's happened. And then we have to ask whether that's real or whether there's some funny stuff going on. Because there aren't good jobs, people aren't looking.
The fourth quarter GDP going to be largely pushed, as every quarter is, really by consumer spending. Anything you see so far in the holiday shopping season as we begin to give you a little bit of an idea of where we're headed this quarter?
Well, the early news on holiday shopping and Black Friday is that things weren't very strong.
Yeah. Why? And here's the question is, are we starting to talk down the economy because people say that they're feeling better about their jobs overall, but then consumer sentiment kind of goes the
Well, that's it. The Conference Board and the U of M Consumer Confidence and Sentiment reports have turned over, and they're weaker now than they were. And they're both on a bit of a trend decline. The And the Consumer Comfort Index from Bloomberg is doing the same thing. It's off. So all these indicators of comfort, confidence, call it what you want, it's weak. Consumer attitudes are poor.
And if the Fed raises interest rates and then home sales start to drop because people feel like they have money when their home values are worth something, then we could be in for a pretty ugly first quarter.
You know, the economy has a lot of downside here, and you got to ask yourself whether it's the right time to raise rates. The Fed needs to ask itself, what's the biggest mistake it can make? When you're unsure what to do, there's a strategy called the mini-max. And that is you do the thing that minimizes the worst wrong if you make the wrong decision.
Do nothing.
And I think doing nothing right now is that recipe.
Bob Brusca, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Taking a look at some more headlines right now. Here's a warning for you racists out there. Be careful of what you post on Facebook because it could end up on a billboard. A campaign in Brazil is putting racist or hurtful comments on billboards near the homes of those posting the comments. The sponsors of this measure are using the local tag feature, the location tag feature on Facebook to track down the offenders. The campaign is called Virtual Racism, Real Consequences. The CEO of United Healthcare is defending the company's decision to drop out of the Affordable Care Act. Stephen Helmsley says he had little choice, citing losses by offering health insurance through the exchanges. Helmsley says too many older Americans have signed up and not enough younger, healthy Americans have joined. Republican presidential frontrunner Donald Trump has a new money-making idea. He wants to charge CNN $5 million for his appearance at the next GOP debate. Trump says CNN hasn't treated him very well and that the cable network is making boatloads of money selling advertising for the debates. Coming up next, a big-ticket pledge to help Africa cope with climate change. The latest from Paris when we come back. Stay with us.